Today's lesson is over the circular flow, so take out your pens and paper and start taking your notes while Mr. White is going to go into more detail.
Hey guys, I hope you have a pen and paper out. I'm going to go a little slow here for about a half a minute. Make sure you have something to sketch this on. And then when you look online at the lesson, of course, you can make corrections or whatever. But we are dealing with, if you saw the first fragment of this, it's called the circular flow economy. And when we look at an economy, like America's economy, this is the way it works. We can call it the circular flow diagram, which explains it. It's also called the circular flow chart and also called the circular flow model. So if you hear any of those terms, circular flow chart, circular flow model, circular flow diagram, they're all talking about the same thing right here. And basically, you create it by developing a box over here to the far left that is your households, people, citizens, the private sector, okay? And over to the far right, we have other part of the private sector called your firms, businesses, corporations. The word firm means business, okay? So they are at the other side of this circular flow model or chart or diagram that we're doing. Now, another big player in our economy is, of course, the government. And that interchanges between these two things. Now, one of the first things I want you to understand is we've got two big circles up here that represent two markets in one economy. A market is the exchange of goods and services for money. And up here, we have a market where goods and services are being sold for cash. Okay? That is called the product market. That's the place where goods and services are sold for cash, okay? And we could call it the product market. In fact, it's called that as well. A lot of these things have duplicit names that mean the same thing. You just have to understand what they are and know goods and services are products because they are produced. Okay, in this other circle below, we have another market called the factor market. And why they don't say factor of production, I don't know, but most times all factor of production is usually not, all production's not usually in there, it just says factor market. You can also call this a resource market because what's being sold here is land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. So it is sold, and in return for that, we got cash going out, okay? So let's look at how it rolls. The first thing that a firm does is buy from the factor market. So both households and firms are businesses and business organizations. A firm has to buy as a consumer, but they're buying factors of production, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. They're producing out of those natural resources, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and making products called goods and services that are sold in the product market. So up here, they are selling the goods and services. Okay? This money that they receive flows back into their accounts. And the products, this exchange right here is the goods and services. So the firms buy resources, transfer those resources, factors of production, into the deal. In return, they put cash down here. So the firms then take these natural resources, goods and services are produced, they send them into this market called the product market, where people and households are going every day and buying goods and services. And they bring back the goods and services. They're carrying cash into the system that is going to be returned like so. Does everybody see that? I know it looks wacky, but I can get it real clean for you. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So let me go over that one step right here. Firms are buying resources, factors of production, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, also known as the factor market. They're buying that down here. They pay cash. So they put the cash into the market, then these resources are funneled back into the firms. What happens to the factors of production for the firms? They make goods and services, which is known as products. They are then sent into this market to sell for profit. They're looking for profit, so they sell, and the cash comes back into them, okay? So that it can be spent out here and also kept for other things. So let's look at the other side of the market. Here we have households, that's you and me, and people that work for a job, wages, stuff like that. Every day we have to go to the store, we have to go get gasoline, we have to go get milk, bread, you name it. So we go with our cash credit and we buy the products and goods and services that's been put there by the businesses. And we bring them back into our home. So we are taking cash into this market and we're bringing goods and services out of it to satisfy our needs and wants. That's a very simple exchange. Maybe I should have started with that because that's really where it all starts. Even though firms usually decide what products and goods and services to sell, and people decide I want that or I don't want that. That's a democratic economic system and circular flow chart. But let's see how, this is one unique factor right here that you're going to have to try to understand. In this secondary market, the market where factors are sold to businesses, businesses will become consumers and households become like businesses. So what are households selling? Well, they're renting land to businesses. They are selling, guess what? Labor. They get a job and they get paid to do their job. So they're providing labor, and the capital is their experience. We call this human capital. And that is the education, the ability to do a job, the experience, all that. Okay? So you want to sell that for the most wages you can. So they take these factors provided from the households of America and they sell it in the factor of production market, also known as resources. Okay? Factors of production are resources. They are land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. You've already learned those terms. They're the 4 types of factors of production. So what are they taking out of the market? They're taking out wages, rent, and things of that nature are going back into the households. Okay? So they can in turn shop up here. Meanwhile, what is happening? All this stuff provided by the households now moves through the factor market and is bought by businesses. And they provide the cash, which is transferred in. Do you understand this? Have you drawn it? Is it clean? So what I'm going to do real quick is erase this, and I'll be back in 3 seconds. Pause it. Students, this is a cleaner version of my explanation. I know the explanation got a little confusing because we're tracking cash flows. One thing to remember, the cash flow, if you have households here and firms here, you can reverse them. It's not going to make it wrong, but when you do that, you have to make a couple of changes. But let's keep it rudimentary. That means easy. Put the households to the left, firms to the right, and then you put your product market and your factor market, 2 different markets in one, top and bottom. That means that your cash flow is always clockwise. The consistent way up be on your quiz, test, or anything in the future. It'll show that the cash in your economy is going clockwise, while goods and services and the factors of production is going counterclockwise. Do you see that? That's why if you color this and put arrows down here, these areas maybe should be in green to represent money. These should be in orange or brown or something to represent goods and services, factors of production. Do you see that the factors of production, also known as resources, is like goods and services to firms? Because they're buying them to produce goods and services. So basically this is what we have. We have a CFC. I'm not talking about Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm talking about circular flow chart, also called a model, also called a diagram. And it shows a product market, also known as a what? Goods and services market, same thing. And then it shows a factor market, also known as the resource market, because land, labor, and capital are resources. And basically what has happened now on this new one, and I got so convoluted on the other one I didn't get to show you the government, but it's very easy. Your government exists by collecting taxes from people and from firms. With that tax money, they provide the services the government needs to provide for its people to have safety and other things. So they actually spend money in the factor market and they spend money in the product market. In return, they get the factors and the resources they need to run the government. They also buy the factors of production straight right here, which is a duplication, but nevertheless, you've got a word here called a subsidy. Now, how does the government help firms through subsidy? Because they, this is a duplication. I'm going to erase this and show you that they provide welfare payments. And when I say welfare, that's a slang term for Social Security, all that other stuff that you can get, free lunch, you name it. So that's how the government's helping the people. So over here, a subsidy is a welfare payment, but it's to firms. Only firms get a subsidy. It could be a tax break or it could be an actual monetary payment. And at the same time, the government is also providing goods and services and factors, as you will see in the product market and the factor market. Are you confused? Then get a video, zoom in when we get the Zoom going again, and ask questions. Because you're going to have to draw this, label it, and maybe even color it or something. So once again, that's a circular flow chart called model, called diagram. You're not going to be wrong to use any of those terms. We have two markets. One of the most important things is, remember, is it is composed of two markets: the product and the resource or factor. I'm not going to count it wrong if you put factor, because it is the factor market, which means factor of productions market. Then I'm putting the households on the left, and the government in the middle, and the firms on the right, creating a clockwise flow of money and a counterclockwise flow of goods and services and factors of production. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I hope I didn't confuse you. I hope that you had some clarity. It's really simple. It's really simple. Just set it up, make notes on your paper like I told you, and you should be all right to reproduce this on a quiz. Have a good day.